Hello and welcome to my Microbiology Shorts series. This short video is about the bacterial requirements for growth. When bacteria grow, they require certain parameters, certain conditions, and some of these we call physical requirements, such as temperature, pH, and what we call osmotic pressure. And some of them are chemical requirements. For this short, we're going to talk about physical requirements: temperature and pH and osmotic pressure. So every bacteria has an optimal growth temperature. That's the temperature at which it grows best. Every bacteria has a pH range that it will grow in, but there usually is a pH optimal that a certain species of bacteria will grow at. And osmotic pressure has to do with salt requirements in the environment. So growth rates and temperature. If you take a look at this graph, we have rate of growth here on the y-axis. We have temperature in degrees Celsius on the x-axis. Temperature in degrees Celsius can often make us in the United States a little bleary-eyed, right? Because we don't often think in Celsius in our normal life, but it's useful to understand a few basic parameters about Celsius. First of all is that room temperature is about 22 degrees Celsius. When you start to get into the 30s, the mid-30s, that's where you're talking about being near 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when you're over 40, you're definitely in the very, very hot range. When you get down to 0, that's freezing. Minus is below freezing. So those are some things to keep in mind when you think about temperature. So you see we have 5 different what we call growth curves here, but these are plotted for growth rate versus temperature. So the higher the peak of the curve, the faster these bacteria are going to grow. And then there's also a minimum and a maximum to these curves. So for example, this curve starts about minus, and you have to guess, this graph doesn't give us many hints. There's 10 degrees between each, so maybe this is minus 8, and then it peaks here about 12 maybe, and then it comes down at perhaps 18 or 19 is the top rate. So what this means is that this bacteria isn't going to grow below minus 8 degrees Celsius, and this bacteria is not going to grow above about 18 or 19 degrees Celsius. But in the middle here is its range of growth. This here, where the peak is the optimal temperature of growth. This group of bacteria that grows within this range with approximately this optimal temperature we call psychrophile. Psychro means cold, essentially, and phile means to love, of course, philios, right? The second group, these psychrotrophs, these grow from about 0 degrees Celsius to about 31 degrees Celsius with an optimal of approximately 22, so right about room temperature. These are room temperature, 70 degrees, 75 degree temperature loving bacteria. Mesophiles go from about 10 degrees to a little bit below 50, maybe 48 degrees Celsius, with an optimal temperature of approximately 37 degrees Celsius. 37 degrees Celsius is body temperature for humans. It's approximately 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So mesophiles are a group of bacteria that you would have to worry about living on or in your body. You'd have to worry about them if they were pathogens. You're not going to worry about them if you're part of your normal flora, the normal component of bacteria in your intestines or on your skin, or in other places in your body. Thermophiles, so thermo, heat, right? Philios, to love. 40 degrees, which is hot. This is above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way to 72, which is really, really hot. Not quite boiling, because that's near 100 degrees Celsius, but very, very warm, with an optimal temperature of about 62 degrees Celsius. And then hyperthermophiles, which are we can grow even though we're in boiling water group. They can grow from about 66 degrees Celsius all the way to 110, which is well above boiling, with an optimal range of somewhere between maybe 90 and 95 degrees Celsius. So psychrophiles, psychrotrophs, mesophiles, thermophiles, and hyperthermophiles are groups that we categorize different species of bacteria in depending upon what temperature they really enjoy growing at. One of the things about temperature and bacterial growth is that, well, we can get sick, right, from bacteria growing in and on our food. There are always going to be bacteria in and on food. We're never going to make our food perfectly sterile unless we have a medical condition that requires it, in which case you have to go through kind of extreme measures to get that sterility in your food. So bacteria are there, and some of them are non-harmful. They're simply the bacteria that are going to break down food and cause it to rot. Some of the bacteria there are helpful. Those are the ones that if you give them just the right temperature conditions, they'll actually preserve the food. And then there are the pathogens, the accidental bacteria that are there that could cause you harm if you ate them and your immune system wasn't doing so well and they made you sick. So we want to keep our food at a temperature that isn't going to grow those pathogens, and typically they're mesophiles. So there is a red danger zone, and I like how here we've put the Fahrenheit thermometer right near to the Celsius thermometer so we can kind of see how these go. So from about 60 to about 130 degrees Fahrenheit, which corresponds to about 15 to 52 degrees Celsius. This is a zone that you do not want to keep your food in for very long because it's going to grow bacteria that could cause you food poisoning. It's a rapid growth area for pathogens. Above that temperature, right, is not so great for growing pathogens. And below that temperature also are not that fantastic for growing pathogens. Our refrigerator's temperature is kept in this kind of pinkish zone down here. And that's because not too many bacteria can grow very fast at refrigerator temperatures. You do, of course, I mean, if you leave milk in your refrigerator long enough, right, it's going to grow bacteria and it's going to spoil the milk, and so you can't leave food in your refrigerator indefinitely. Things will grow slowly, but not very many pathogens are going to grow at refrigerator temperatures. So the bacteria that you're selecting for at refrigerator temperatures, which is approximately, most refrigerators are set about 4 degrees Celsius, which corresponds somewhere in this range to the 30 to 40 degree Fahrenheit zone. Most of those refrigerator bacteria that are going to grow over time are composting bacteria or food rotting bacteria. Not very many pathogens are going to grow there. You don't get very much growth below freezing, so in this zone here and here. Mesophiles, of course, the ones that grow at human body temperature, they're not going to grow at all there. And most other pathogens are not going to grow at very cool temperatures, and the ones that do grow at very cool temperatures are typically not ones that are going to be harmful. So freezing is a great way of slowing down or stopping bacterial growth. But the thing about freezing is that it does not kill the bacteria. It's not a way of killing them. So when you take food out of the freezer and you leave it on the counter, for example, to thaw out, to defrost, those bacteria can start growing again as the food warms up to room temperature. This is a great reason why you should always defrost your food in the refrigerator, not on the counter, because defrosting at refrigerator temperatures is also going to keep the mesophiles that would tend to grow better at room temperature, right, which starts to be up in this zone, up in here, 60 to 70 Fahrenheit, and that's when you're going to start growing spoilage bacteria that aren't good for you. So always defrost in the refrigerator, and never ever put your food back in the freezer once you've defrosted it. Once you take it out of the freezer, it goes from this temperature. If you say put it on the counter, it goes into this zone, and then you get bacterial growth, bacterial growth, bacterial growth. Suddenly you have a lot more bacteria on your defrosted steak, for example, than you did before. If you put it back in the freezer, that's not going to kill those bacteria. They're still there. Then you take it out of the freezer again, you've got 1 million more bacteria than you did the first time you defrosted it, and those 1 million more can grow really rapidly. That's when you get some that may produce toxins, as this says, or other bacteria that are harmful. All right, well, I think I'm going to stop here, and I hope that you have enjoyed this little microbiology short. Look for more on the website, and I'll be producing a number of these in the days to come, and I hope you have some opportunity to look at them and enjoy them, and I'll talk to you later. Have a great day.